the former UKIP leader Nigel Farage was welcomed with open arms at the Tory Party Conference this week, despite spending decades campaigning against the party.
The GB News presenter was seen letting his hair down with Priti Patel. He's got some moves. He even proved a hit with the young Tories, many queuing up for selfies with him.
So is Nigel Farage set to make a political comeback? Delighted to have him in the studio with us this morning. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
How did you embrace Farage mania? I mean, were you expecting that? Well,
no, I wasn't. You know, I fought against them for years. I fought elections against them. There was always a fair bit of enmity towards me, and I was always accused of having an agenda that was somehow extreme and bad and wrong. And yet, those things that I've fought for over the years, including, by the way, getting rid of HS2, have now become quite mainstream within the Conservative Party. So, no, I really was welcome with open arms, but particularly by the young people. Lots of young delegates, and they're looking for ideas. They want a really positive vision for the future of the country. And I think they look at a lot of Tory politicians, frankly, as being pretty uninspiring.
So did they get the inspiration and the vision for the future from Rishi Sunak yesterday, and did you get it? Does it give you a future within the Conservative Party?
Well, it was very nice of Rishi to say that, you know, we're a broad church and we'd have him back, which previous Conservative leaders would never have said.
Desperation?
Oh, they're in trouble. I mean, they're in very, very real trouble, and they're particularly in trouble in the Red Wall. And those Red Wall voters that went Conservative in 2019 had nearly all come through UKIP. You know, they were old Labour who'd gone to UKIP, had gone to the Conservatives. So you can see why they're being nice to me.
But they're the ones that aren't happy about HS2 being cancelled, aren't they?
I'm not sure about that. You know, Metropolitan Manchester wants HS2, but actually, if you did link up all those northern cities, you know, a big new station in Bradford, a proper link to Liverpool, a link across to Hull, actually, the north would be far better off without HS2 if the PM's plans went ahead. I think it's what wasn't said yesterday that was significant. I mean, he said we're going to stop the boats, but didn't even mention our membership of the ECHR. But there's a bigger problem. You know, we're living through a population explosion in our country. 10 million population rise since Blair came to power. And young people want to be able to have a house, have a reasonable expectation of getting a GP appointment, want to get cars, travel around the country. And we're seeing a population crisis really affecting everyone's quality of life, and the Conservatives have no answer for it. So, frankly, at the moment, would I rejoin them? No, I won't. And I will, in fact, this Saturday, go to the Reform UK conference. Now, Reform will fight the next election. They're not going to win the next election, but at least they're fighting for the right ideas.
The Prime Minister has gone to Spain today. He's looking for more help to try and deal with migration. I mean, do you feel like Rishi Sunak's on the right path with trying to get any traction with his...
Absolutely wasting his time, because the Europeans themselves are at war with each other. I mean, the German president last week said, we're at breaking point. We simply can't take any more people that across the Mediterranean. The Poles have now built a massive wall on their eastern border, and they have said we will take 0 people coming across the Mediterranean. So the battle within Europe, within the European Union, on how to deal with this is enormous. And let's face it, the Italian problem, what they're facing coming in through the island of Lampedusa, is much worse than what we're seeing at Dover.
But one of the solutions that all parties seem to agree on is that we need cooperation with those countries in Europe in order to achieve what you want to achieve. So, in a weird, strange kind of way, doesn't that mean closer ties with talking to Europe?
They have got it wrong.
Who's got it wrong?
The European Union have got it wrong. They have said that anybody that crosses the Med and sets foot on EU soil can stay. And that's why millions have come, and millions more will come. What we should be saying is...
So what's the alternative? Just to literally turn the boat around and without knowing whether their circumstances, without putting them at risk of going back on the boat?
Do you know, whatever the circumstances, there is a limit to the number of people that Europe can take or we can take. The Australians faced this problem 10 years ago. The boats were coming from Indonesia. The same row was going on. Are these genuine refugees? Are they young men looking to better their lives or join criminal gangs? All the same debates that we're having. In the end, the Australians said, we can't go on with this. It's a threat to national security. We've no idea who these people are. They turned the boats around. They towed them back to Indonesia. there was international uproar, but within a fortnight, the boats had stopped coming. And we as a country have taken in 500,000 refugees since 2016. We've taken in people from Hong Kong, from Libya, from Syria, from Ukraine. We have been very, very generous. We can be very proud of what we've done to help people genuinely in problems. What we cannot allow is this endless flow of young men to cross the channel. So we have to get tough.
One of the other policies that Rishi Sunak talked about yesterday was the phasing out of cigarettes. Anybody who's 14 now will never be old enough, never be legally old enough to buy cigarettes because the age is going to go up year after year. You're still a smoker. You've been a smoker for a while.
Well, I'm a sinner, yes, I get that. But, I mean, Rishi Sunak is probably the most intelligent Prime Minister we've had, most decent Prime Minister too, for many, many years. How a man that clever can bring in a law this stupid, I do not know.
What's stupid about it?
Can you imagine in 10 years' time, you go into the local shop to buy 20 fags and you're asked for ID. Oh, sorry, you're only 24, you've got to be 25. All you do is create a black market. And all this focus on smoking ignores a bigger problem.
But the hope is, of course, that the 14-year-olds then won't start smoking, so they won't be 24 trying to buy cigarettes. The impact that smoking has on the NHS is huge, isn't it?
Actually, smokers pay a fortune to the NHS. There is a bigger problem than young people smoking. Smoking long-term is bad for health, undeniable. Drugs, short-term, are catastrophic for society and young people, and that wasn't even mentioned.
Hang on. What is your evidence that people would turn to drugs? And, for instance, there's many arguments that smoking tobacco is a gateway drug. Is a gateway drug to go...
I've heard that argument. I don't really buy that argument. What I'm saying is we have an epidemic of drug taking amongst young people, and all of us as parents know this problem. We're worried about this problem. And
it would save 65,000 deaths from smoking-related cancer.
Well, you ban sugar, you might save, you ban sugar, you might save 200,000
Well, there's people
deaths.
that would argue for that.
Oh, there are. I would argue government should not get involved in these things, educate people, let them make their own choices. But to ignore the drugs epidemic, the psychological damage it's having on our young people, and just focus on cigarettes, I think it's a mistake.
Can we just ask you, just before you go, because you've forged a career since as an award-winning broadcaster, you're now at GB News, of course, and one of your former colleagues, Lawrence Fox, has since been sacked after the interview he conducted with Dan Wootton. I wonder what your thoughts are with that, and also GB News as a whole, and where they are with regards to how they're seen and the agenda that people sort of feel like GB News is promoting.
Well, GB News wanted to be a free speech station, and quite right too. There are some issues that weren't being properly debated across UK media, such as what we're doing in the name of climate change. Right? That's one very good example of where GB News provides a different debate. However, there's a big difference between free speech and being blooming rude. And what Lawrence Fox said about the journalist Ava Evans was unnecessary, out of place, rude, unnecessary, and it wasn't the first time that he'd done it. And you know something? For any channel to work, for this show to work, for GB News to work, it has to be a team game. You need team players. So the fact that they've sacked him from GB News, I think it's the right thing. I think it's the right thing.
The problem is...
And overall, GB News has come into this space and it is a very, very good debate platform, and I'm very proud to be part of it.
Look, you say there's a difference between freedom of speech and rude, but actually the definition of the word rude is something that causes offence. And GB News has sort of prided itself in freedom of speech, things that in other areas would cause offence to certain communities, to certain people, has been broadcast on there. You're right, it's presenting a debate, but when you're setting yourself up as deciding who you can offend, it's a tricky challenge for the channel, isn't it?
Some people take offence that issues are even being debated. Well, to hell with them. We don't care about them. They can be as offended as they like. But how we discuss difficult issues, the language we use, the responsibility that we show, that's the point of what we're trying to achieve. Just standing there being abusive is not what the channel's for.
It feels like there's a fine line, though, how you draw the line and marshal the channel going forward.
As there is in all things in life, including humour and how we talk to each other, there's always a fine line between what's acceptable and what's not. Fox went way over the edge on that, not just this time, but many other times, and he had to go.
Well, it was great to see you being so welcome and accepted at the Tory Party Conference just a few days ago.
Are you proud of your dance moves?
Well, I wouldn't think that. I mean, let's put it this way. They were enthusiastic.
They were. And I salute that.
How we all approach dancing. But Strictly has been on the line, right? Have they come in for you yet, Nigel?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah, but I'll keep the phone line open.
I think you've got a person there that's
We'll pass
keen.
that on, Nigel. Good to see you this
Thank
morning.
you.